Madeline Stillwell, Elizabeth Shue, by the way. Hopefully, we'll get to see her show up in Cobra Kai. Hopefully, Elizabeth Shue, come on, what do you think? One thing that sticks out to me is he talks about an ice skater who wasn't very good. Huey's story about the falling ice skater, the visionary portrayal of a moral enhancement, is enlightening and somewhat unforgettable. And once again, I think that's the secret to this show. Is the portrayal of regular people being thrown into criminal situations, which is what was so popular, and which is what made Breaking Bad so successful. Was the taking a regular person, throwing them into a crime situation, and seeing how they'd react. Because if they do that well, that's how you and I would react. That's how we would react as regular people. Hello and welcome to the Fanatics of Film. My name is Ben. Thank you so much for joining me here. I just barely finished this show, this 8-episode, really well done, well written, well executed show called The Boys on Amazon. And if you haven't checked it out, I recommend it strongly. Highly recommend it. I was thoroughly impressed by this series. Having a little bit more fun with this because I trust it. I believe that it can go places where the Marvel Cinematic Universe can't. Thoroughly impressed by this series. So The Boys is like a dark comedy that was conceived after a one-night stand with Brightburn, The Tick, and Breaking Bad. So if you've seen any of those, great, then you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, then oh well, go watch them. But I'm talking about more like the modern Tick. I did like The Tick that's coming out. I mean, it's unfortunate to see it be canceled. It looks like I think it got canceled, but I just wasn't a fan of it. It wasn't as good as the original. But anyway, I digress. So once again, this show is kind of like a hybrid of a Brightburn, where you have a lot of really superpowered people who are just not necessarily that great people. They're not the best of heroes. And then you have The Tick is involved there, so you have the comedy, but the comedy is not as dark as some. Well, maybe it's a little darker because you have the element of death and murder, but those elements are not trivialized like they are in so many other shows. My most the one I always go to when I think of a dark comedy is I always think of Grosse Point Blank, and if you've seen that film, that's a very it's a very dark comedy, but it's still like people are still like you can be killing somebody and you're still throwing out one-line comedy, which is it is what it is. It's a style. So when I get that, it's fine. But I think that in this film, there's a lot more weight involved when there's death, and which I think actually was really refreshing, very refreshing in that when people are getting killed, it feels that much more real because your characters are that much more. They're affected by it, like you and I would be if we were walking down the street and someone dies right there in front of you. It's devastating. I mean, it's a devastating thing. I mean, anytime I've ever had anybody I know die in my life, it's a devastating, horrifying experience, and it sucks. It's awful. And so, the way that Huey his reactions to these has been incredible. This so far of this series. The protagonists in this series are refreshingly charming, full of life, and are exciting to jump into this story with because they are at least for the most part are portrayed as regular people, because all too often in dark comedies like this, the idea of murder is tossed aside as jokes. In this dark comedy, it is refreshing because all of that is destroyed from the beginning. I am going to enter into spoilers now, so if you wish to continue, please do so at your own risk. I mean, all these characters are I think one of the biggest successes of this show is that all the characters are really well fleshed out. They're well done. you tend to care about them. And I mean, even towards the middle of it, someone who does a heinous act, the Deep, the Aquaman character, he does something awful, and it's like you still kind of care about him, kind of like Cersei in at least I did in A Game of Thrones. But we're not going to go there. Each and every single one of these, you find some real depth to. You really tend to care about them. They're well portrayed. They're well executed. Huey and Robin's first exposition is charming, showing a relationship that we are led to believe will saturate the story moving forward. And so that's another thing that's really amazing about this series, is that it was extremely surprising. Like, there's a lot of surprising stuff that happens. At least to me, it was. I mean, later on, I find situations where people are like, "Oh yeah, that was obvious." I don't know. To me, there was a lot of surprises going on there. So they led to believe that this will saturate the story moving forward. This first scene is an incredible character build for Huey, because his reaction to Robin's sudden demise is devastating, heartbreaking, and horrifying. Huey is played by Jack Quaid, son of Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan, by the way. So you have Huey, who is stellar. I think Huey's character is stellar in this. Jack Quaid is props to you, sir. Great performance for you. Good job. Enter Erin Moriarty, aka Starlight. Her character is promising, shy, yet composed. She reveals her power as being super abled, and this is just one of the many skills that you can use to get a really good job. So that's what this series is interesting. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, if there were actual like heroes with these abilities, they would probably be just like, yeah, cool, I can get a really awesome job now. Like, I mean, that's kind of really fun to think about, because that's something that would set someone apart and give them opportunities for new jobs, or for jobs that may not necessarily present themselves to them in their own, if they were not powered. So yeah, I love her moment of like, since when did hopeful become a naive thing? Why would you get into this business if not to save the world? That's Starlight's that is her manifesto. That is her whole reason. I mean, she believes in it. She believes in the things that she has been taught, that she has been led to believe, that's what this is all about. That it's all about saving the world, saving people around her, being a hero, and that's exciting to me. Enter Simon Pegg in an awkward moment, as I see that his comments could be interpreted as comedic. I didn't find them to be. As Huey opens up his anger, once again, we are reminded of this extraordinary acting and character building. I am particularly impressed by Jack Quaid's performance. As Starlight is accepted into the Seven by Vought, Huey talks about how supes are treated favorably in situations where there is collateral damage because they were on the job. And so Elizabeth Shue shows up in a representative CEO of the Vought family, wanting to further spread the blanket for hire heroes who belong in your own your hometown. The Deep, or the douche, I like to call him, as a bastardized version of Aquaman. He references the Lamplighter and how he has retired. My prediction is that the Deep killed him. I don't know. I don't know. That's just a prediction. We still haven't found out what happened with Lamplighter yet, but apparently Lamplighter did some bad stuff. Huey is having an excruciating time trying to adapt to his new residence as a horrified victim of circumstance, enduring a panic attack in a convenience store. So that's the other thing that's very, very well done, I think, is Huey's panic attacks. When the electricity, the high-pitch electrical pulse floods the screen, and we are overcome with his own anxiety. It creates the anxiety that he is supposed to be experiencing. So Starlight is instantly harassed by the Deep right after their introduction to their Hall of Justice or Watchtower. Yeah, that was just like really silly. Okay, it's weird. Enter Carl Urban, Billy Butcher, revealing that he knows about Huey's predicament, and he wants to help him. It seems obvious that there is an ulterior motive here. He reveals that the Supes are really behind some diabolical deeds, some sinister involvement in the world domination or control through governments and or corporations. Via security cam, we learn that A-Train is a punk who only cares about himself and doesn't feel any remorse for Robin while swallowing one of her molars. It seems now that everyone in this show is a villain except for our two protagonists, Huey and Starlight. So it seems that way, and it starts out that way, but we end up having a good group of people who are just regular people. And once again, I think that's the secret to this show. Is the portrayal of regular people being thrown into criminal situations, which is what was so popular, and which is what made Breaking Bad so successful. Was the taking a regular person, throwing them into a crime situation, and seeing how they'd react. Because if they do that well, that's how you and I would react. That's how we would react as regular people. The depth of where the rabbit hole can take us is unraveled when Huey and Butcher are planning to plant the bug. I can sense that Huey's future is bound for change. More choices abound for discovery. Madeline Stillwell, Elizabeth Shue, by the way. Hopefully, we'll get to see her show up in Cobra Kai. Hopefully, Elizabeth Shue, come on. What do you think? Madeline Stillwell, Elizabeth Shue, is found negotiating the future of Vought by lowering her price to plant a hero in the mayor's city. It does make me wonder what their motives here are and how they benefit from it. I can't help but think that the heroes are being used for their evil acts or on behalf of the ruling class. So this was another interesting thing here. Our protagonists meet randomly in a park bench or gazebo, and they aren't aware of who each other are. So we have Huey and Starlight show up, or at least just randomly bump into each other at this gazebo or this park bench / gazebo, and find each other out. So and discover each other. And there's some really cool exchange here that happens. Huey's story is about falling. One thing that sticks out to me is he talks about an ice skater who wasn't very good. Huey's story about the falling ice skater, the visionary portrayal of a moral enhancement, is enlightening and somewhat unforgettable. So that was really great. Huey is a kind of like Jesse Pinkman. I really feel like we are beginning to see him transform here. He is becoming someone more than what he was. His excellent delivery of his character's adaptability or lack thereof is gripping, and hopefully it will not go unnoticed in this series. These two are the key to this show. Their ability to project us as the regular people who are thrown into a criminal situation is priceless. Just like Chuck, Jesse Pinkman, or Walter White, a regular average person who is just trying to adapt to criminal activity. As Huey tears up the $45,000 check, Butcher explains that he is a good lad, strengthening his value and friendship in the future, perhaps. I've finished the show. We're already eight episodes. I'd love to chat with you about this. If you want more episodes talking about the details of this series, please give this a like and share it. Let people know about it. I am going to do some serious deep dives and writing and scripting all of my podcasts now, trying to enhance the flavor of them and make them better. I hope that you enjoyed this video. My name is Ben, and this is the Fanatics of Film. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.